If you own a cat or you're thinking of getting a cat, well, you know what I mean. Cats are really cool. And my cat, Lily, well, she's beyond cool. And the more I talk to people, the more I'm finding out that there's a cat movement going on out there. These days, everybody seems to be a cat person. If you know, you know. But that litter box, have you heard of the whisker litter robot? I promise you, it's a game changer. It automatically cycles after every use, so you're not having to scoop. So no more of that stinky smell. Plus, their cool whisker app, it actually gives you real-time notifications to let you know what is really going on. It's a royal treatment for both you and your cat. The time saved, the holding your nose effort of scooping and cleaning, it's just no longer needed. Let me tell you, the future, it's feline. I'm just saying. But learn more about whisker litter robot models and starter kits today and take an additional $50 off bundles with code FORREAL. That's an additional $50 off bundles with code FORREAL at whisker.com/forreal. Now, I grew up in the city. Now, how about you? Now, my mom, she actually grew up in the country, and actually years ago she moved back to a farm. In today's episode, Candice Wierzbowsky and Eric Hurlock join me, and we talk all about Lancaster Farming. Now, it's one of America's longest-running agriculture publication, and we also talk about the Super Smart Farm Show. Now, this is a great podcast for kids and even for some of you big kids. Now, the podcast teaches kids where food comes from and how farms work. Now, here's a couple things. Do you know what the difference of a cow and a heifer is? Or a steer and a bull? Do you think your kids know? Or do you know? And as you know, these days, it seems that kids are really becoming disconnected from nature. You know, those stupid screen things they're holding all the time. Now, you've probably heard of 4-H, but do your kids know anything about them? Do you actually know what 4-H stands for? I'm going to help you. It stands for Head, Heart, Hand, and Health. I'm going to tell you a secret. I had to look it up too. Now, when you go to the grocery store, do your kids know where the food comes from? Now, these are just some of the topics we cover, but both Candice and Eric, and by the way, he's the star of the Super Smart Farm Show, they're determined to help educate kids in a fun way. And by the way, if you've got kids, it's a great podcast. The episodes are short, they're fun, and full of really cool insights. Now, Lancaster Farming is based in Pennsylvania. It's in the heart of the Amish and Mennonite country with lots of farms. And their history, it really is pretty amazing. This episode, it's a really an important one. Farmers are our lifeblood, literally. So be super smart and listen to this one, because I'm sure it will, get ready, move you.
For real, 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 for real. Got a bunch of furry friends and I love them all the same. I'm an animal lover, veterinarian is the name. Let's share some pet stories from heartwarming to strange, losses and gains, from wacky to insane. For real. You're now tuned in to For Real with your host, Mark Kyle.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the For Real Podcast. Today I've got a special treat for you. We have Pennsylvania in the house today, but I have two really great guests. I've got Candice Wierzbowsky and Eric Hurlock with us, and we're going to get in where they're from. I'm going to let you guys do that. So let's introduce you guys. You know, as I told you and people that listen all the time, I really like to talk about the guests. So Candace, you go first. Girls get to go first, in my house at least. And let's talk about you, and then let's dig into, we've got a lot of cool things to do about it. I'm really excited about this episode today.
Oh, thanks. Well, my name is Candice Wierzbowsky, and I am the digital product manager for Lancaster Farming. Lancaster Farming is a weekly agricultural newspaper that we publish here in Ephrata, Pennsylvania. And as one might guess from the title, it is all about agriculture, farming, and rural life.
But it's not all about Lancaster.
Right.
This is where we're based, but we cover agriculture in the Northeast region of the U.S. My name is Eric Hurlock. I'm the senior digital editor here at Lancaster Farming newspaper. And together we are part of a podcast team, and we make a show called the Super Smart Farm Show, which is a show for kids that has a lot to do with animals.
Well, I'm excited about that part of it specifically because I love kids, but I want to get into Lancaster Farming first before we get into the podcast.
Sure.
But before we do that, how did you guys get involved and what brought, I'm assuming are you both from Pennsylvania?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
I was raised just, a mile or so away from where I am now in Reamstown, Pennsylvania, which is in Lancaster.
And I grew up in Chester County, which is one county to the east. I moved away for a few years, came back. There's no place like home.
I've heard that somewhere. I'm not quite sure where I've heard that one, but I've heard that. I actually love Pennsylvania, and I think we talked, because there's New Hope in some places there. You got that Amish country, and
We're in the heart of Amish country here.
yeah, I think it's beautiful. And plus I like Philadelphia. I mean, I love all the history and all that kind of stuff too. Now on Lancaster Farming, what I was reading when I was doing my homework, it's one of the oldest publications that's out there on agriculture net, correct?
That is correct.
We've been going since 1955.
1955.
So 70 years last year. So it's a big deal. And we're part of like the connective tissue of the farming communities because we're like multi-generational now. We've been publishing so long that, people's grandparents read us. It's neat. It's like a privileged position that we're in, but it's a good spot.
I'm doing the math. That's 71 years, I guess.
Yep.
It'll be 71 this November.
Wow, that's crazy. So let's talk about that a little bit. What is it for people that don't live in your area? I'm sure I know that it's a publication comes out. Is it digital and is it printed as well?
That's right.
Yes, so it's a print publication, but we also have an e-edition so people can subscribe and access it online.
Okay.
And then we also have lancasterfarming.com where we put up a lot of our content as well.
The newspaper itself comes out every Saturday, and it's a big, fat newspaper. It's kind of anachronistic in that sense. When I grew up, there was a lot of newspapers. These days, local journalism, it's tricky. But here, because we're in the farming community, and honestly, we're in the plain communities, the Amish, Mennonite, and so where our print publication sort of survives because a lot of those folks aren't digital.
Right. Well, that makes sense. I never even think about that.
And so in our newspaper, it's a whole economy. There's classified sections, there's stories, there's recipes. It's a community that generations of people in the farming world have appreciated.
We also have something called mailbox markets, which is a little like classifieds, but it allows subscribers to Lancaster Farming to list things that they have for sale or that they need taken off their
For free.
accounts, basically for free.
For free. So it keeps our subscriber base because you can, if you become a subscriber to the paper every month, you can sell or place 2 free ads in the paper, and people do. They love it.
Yeah, and there have been some wild stories that have come out of that. I mean, people place mailbox market ads for things you might expect, machinery or maybe like certain animals. But we've also had an airplane.
An airport. It was an airport for sale.
Airport.
Yeah.
I know there was a train for sale. So we get some really wacky things in there as well.
I once talked to a man whose father sold the family tractor back in 1975. It was like a John Deere, 4020 or something. And he wanted it back. And he searched the newspaper for years and years and years. And finally, in the 90s, he found the exact tractor by the serial number. And he was able to buy it and bring it back home to the farm. So it's like that kind of thing that, like, you wouldn't believe that the stories that happen in the pages of Lancaster Farming. It's really just a wonderful place.
Well, what I like about farming, it's traditional, right? It's kind of the way the country grew up. My mom lives in Missouri, and she lives on a big farm and all that. So the crazy thing I was thinking about, we were talking about the tractor. My mom bought a 66 Mustang when they first came out. She has the original one. It's what I learned how to drive on. My mom still has it and just recently had it rebuilt, so it's like looks pristine for there. But
Is that a 4-speed?
Oh no, it was automatic and
automatic.
It had the biggest steering wheel. It basically had a tractor steering wheel. But my mom still has it, and I think that has a little. I don't know if that ties into your community as well. That people tend to be more traditional, I guess, in the rural areas because it means more, I guess.
Well, you have to be a little more self-reliant, in rural areas because no one's really there to I mean, you have your community, but you have to know how to do a lot of things on your own. Like when you're growing up on a farm, you learn everything.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think people who are into Mustangs, probably also into tractors a little bit. There's definitely crossover.
For real, 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 for real.
And we'll be right back.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at PrepVet.com. Save 10% with promo code FurRealPodcast, covered by most pet insurance.
Obviously, it's an animal podcast, so let's transfer, because on the farms, I know there's animals. You know what's funny is I was thinking about, I was at an airport just the other day. I was coming home from being out of the country, but I looked around, I was in the restaurant, and every single person was on their screens. Every single person, I was in a different country. It just was such a weird thing. And what you guys are doing, because I want to get into 4-H and all that stuff, and for the people that are listening, some of you may have heard of it, and I'll bet you there's some that haven't. So let's I want to tie in the animals and tie about, because you guys talk, I'm sure in the farming thing, they talk about 4-H, because that's a big thing. So let's talk about some of that stuff too, and how important animals are to the farming community and just to everything else too, how it ties in.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously animals are a huge part of the farming community. Not every farm obviously deals in livestock, but even the farms that deal in more produce or field crop commodities, there are often still animals on those farms, whether they're farm dogs or cats, or they may be a corn farmer, but they've also got some chickens, because diversification is really important in agriculture to try and make sure that you're making money in as many different ways as you can. So while you might be farming corn, you can also sell those eggs.
Right. And we live in Lancaster. Well, I don't live in Lancaster County, but we're in Lancaster County now, and there's a lot of animal agriculture. Where the horses are out there plowing the fields, and it's neat to see a team pulling a wagon that's pulling a baler. Right? You ever see that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fascinating.
Well, I'm thinking about that. I think, especially in Amish country in the Mennonites, that's exactly what they're doing, I'm assuming, right? Do they use tractors?
Some do, some don't. It depends on what the bishop allows.
Yeah, it's kind of by community what is allowed and what's not. There are sometimes rules about, there's no electricity in the home, but if you're in the barn, you're allowed to use it.
Uh-huh.
You see tractors around here with steel tires.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
As opposed to rubber tires.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So let's talk 4-H, and then let's kind of transition into this Super Smart Farm, because I love it. I actually have listened to multiple episodes. I've actually passed it on to people I know that have kids in that, because I think it's a great show. But before we get there, let's talk about, because you guys are, when I look at your magazine, or a publication, I guess is a better word for it.
We call it a newspaper.
Newspaper.
Yeah.
I look at it online at your website, and you go into a lot of things. You go into bees, you go into all these other things too. Let's talk a little bit about all those things, and then let's talk about the fun kid thing too as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm so glad you brought up bees. So I'm the one who's kind of in charge of the website here, and I kind of have a giggle every time we have a bee story and I get to mark it as livestock to go under our livestock section.
Uh-huh.
Because I think a lot of people wouldn't think of bees as livestock, but they are in this case. They're our tiniest livestock.
They're classified as livestock.
Yes, by the USDA. The USDA classifies them as livestock because they are an animal that is being cared for, and we do get a commodity from that animal, their honey or their wax.
And bees, a great example of how everything is connected, the web of life. And we are just smack dab in the middle of that as humans. And, agriculture, I think, is the most important endeavor that we do as humans. And so, yeah, well, at the newspaper, everything is connected. We have soil, we have pollinators, we've got crops. It's like if you eat food or wear clothes, you've got a vested interest in agriculture.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's funny on the bee thing, just so you guys know. So when I was growing up, I was into Boy Scouts for a little while. I was the worst Boy Scout ever, but I went to Boy Scout camp, and I have two merit badges. One is fishing, which I still fish today, and the other one was beekeeping. It really was way back when. The only two I got. But, I think they're so important. It's funny. I read an article yesterday, and I thought it was interesting about what you should take to a party like you get invited. And this was somebody in Paris, but it translates to here. Because if I get invited to a party, I'm going to buy a bottle of wine or going to get some flowers. And their point was, it's almost in Paris or in France in particular, it's rude because you're assuming they don't know they have the right wine. That it's a sum because they think that there are. If you bring flowers, if you don't bring it in a vase, they got to take the time and set up the whole thing. And they said really good ideas. And I thought about it. I'm going to start doing this. A great idea is to bring local fresh honey as a gift for the party. And I thought it's such a clever idea. It's a weird thing, but I thought it's so cool. And there's a lot of important things about honey because that's all the allergies in the areas you have. I thought I'm going to start bringing honey instead. I thought it was kind of a clever idea.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Here's an interesting sort of side note on honey. So we have an invasive species here in Pennsylvania, and it's sort of spreading out. It's called the spotted lanternfly. And last summer, we learned that they make honey from spotted lanternfly honeydew, which, and they say it's got medicinal properties. I don't know.
Yeah. We got to try some actually last summer at Ag Progress Days, which is a big event up in the Penn State area. And
they said it had notes of ham, which is a weird thing to hear.
It wasn't bad. It's just, you're used to tasting honey, and it just tasted a little different.
Well, if it tastes like ham, it certainly tastes a lot different, for sure. Okay, let's talk 4-H, because I know you guys know it. I'm in Texas, so I know a lot of people do, but, people listen to this thing for all over the place. Let's talk about 4-H. The parents are going to know, but I guarantee kids today, because they're all on their screens and that, and I think your podcast and other stuff is really relevant to this, bring them back to what nature is and outside is.
Yeah.
So let's talk 4-H.
Okay, so 4-H is an education program for kids. It's part of the cooperative extension system that was sort of part of the land-grant universities and the USDA. It was set up, I think, after the Civil War. I don't think 4-H was set up after the Civil War, but, this cooperative extension program was. So this program, it's called 4-H. It's the 4 H's are head, heart, hands, and health. And it's a way to get kids involved in agriculture, in crops, in animals.
In addition to in agriculture and crops and animals, like Eric said, they also participate in developing certain skills. So that might be like sewing or cooking or woodworking, skills that they can use for the rest of their lives that aren't necessarily being taught in schools anymore, but are still so useful to have.
It's like an intergenerational education program.
Mm-hmm. And one of the big things that 4-H does that really does relate to animals is that they do livestock shows.
Right.
So kids will get a show animal, and it might be a cow or a pig
or
a
goat,
sheep,
something.
or a goat. And they're responsible for caring for these animals. They may have them on their own farm if they live on a farm. They may board them at a neighboring farm. But this is a huge responsibility for these kids to take care of them for months, if not almost a full year.
And it's every day. Farming is every day. So these kids are learning, first thing in the morning, you got to go take care of your animals.
Right.
And it, develops, sort of the habits of responsibility and
Yeah, and so these projects then culminate in them showing their livestock. And, prepping an animal for show is an additional skill. Having the animal be ready to enter the show ring, which, is different than just hanging out in a pasture or a barn. There's a lot of pressure there for the animal. And so they show these animals, and then a lot of the times what happens is these animals are then auctioned off. And so the children have to say goodbye to these animals, which can be a very emotional moment during the shows. Yeah. But again, it's teaching just another lesson that, this is part of agriculture and this is part of life. Yeah.
Yeah. And at the newspaper, we cover a lot of those shows. They sort of culminate here in Pennsylvania at the Pennsylvania Farm Show in January, but all summer long, there's, at county fairs, there's shows. And so our team goes out there and we interview the kids, and I have just I've been working here at the newspaper for over 11 years, and I grew up adjacent to a farm, but I learned so much about just farming culture by being immersed here at the newspaper in that. And yeah, what these kids are doing in 4-H and, FFA, that's another program. It's just incredible. Like these kids, when they're 16 years old, they're just in a different level of maturity than maybe kids who don't go through these programs.
Right. Yeah. And they're always so incredibly well-spoken, and they really are just like a joy to hear from, because it really does give you kind of hope for the next generation.
Right. Because they have confidence.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to see in people. Yeah.
Well, we like people being outside too. I mean, what I knew about 4-H, and I don't know a lot about it because I kind of lived in cities, not in farm areas. And, you'd see in movies, or you hear about where a kid would have a baby lamb and they raise it and then they take it to the show, they get the blue ribbon and all that kind of stuff. So they have to learn how to take care of something and do all that stuff. That responsibility is really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do they do any like weird animals, like really like pygmy goats or anything like that? I want a pygmy goat, by the way, badly. I've been seeing it on social media a lot lately and going, I've had miniature goats before, but I've never had a pygmy goat. I want a pygmy goat.
That is a good question. The thing is that they need to have access to these animals, right? So if like something like a pygmy goat might be a little harder to get access to
Right.
for some of these kids.
But I think it's also project based. So I think if you can get a pygmy goat and you can sort of, make your project based on that, I'm sure if there's a will, there's a way, because they want kids to be self-led in their education. That's what a lot of it is too.
So Eric, you're saying I could be in 4-H? I could get my pygmy goat.
There might be an age limit, but
I can adopt it too. I'll just pay to adopt it at the same time get to keep my pygmy goat. I tie everything to my mom because of my connection. My mom, they grow wheat and corn and stuff like that, but she has like 4 goats. Four donkeys. They all know her. They come there. She has a cow that follows her around. It's like a personality. It's the craziest thing ever. She comes out and the cow just walks with her. This big old thing. It's the funniest thing ever I've ever seen. It's cool.
Yeah, there's such a thing as it's like a boss cow or a lead cow. Like in the herd, there's always one that's the leader. So it's neat how there's personalities and how farmers get to know the different cows.
For real, 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 for real.
And we'll be right back.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at prepvet.com. Save 10% with promo code FurRealPodcast, covered by most pet insurance.
So let's talk about the progression. So the podcast is not that old. You guys are in 2025, right? Roughly.
We're 1 year in. We've got how many episodes? 50-ish?
We just released our 52nd. So
so 1 year exactly.
Yeah.
That's good for you guys. That's a big one.
It's been a blast. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, it's funny. Obviously, I know a little bit about it, but it's funny is most people don't realize how much dedication it takes to get it done and to do it right. So where was the genesis of doing the podcast? I'm sure you guys you're talking to the agriculture world, the animal world, the beekeepers, and all that stuff. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring up 4-H because that's sort of where it came from. A member of our team named Drew, he was out doing a video. He's our video production guy. He was doing a video shoot and he was talking to somebody. Maybe the kid was a 4-H kid, and he got to thinking like, this is the largest youth education organization in the world. Why don't we like address that audience, right? And so he brought this idea of a kids show of some. He thought it would be a podcast. I guess well, it's modern. It's the modern way to communicate.
Yeah, at the end of the day.
And it's also where a lot of, younger audiences are. When we do interact with, the 4-Hers or the FFA kids, we ask them, how do you get your news? And they're all online, you know, and
Yeah,
whether
of
that's
course.
from social media or a website or a podcast, this is where a younger audience is.
And, you know, it's somewhat strategic, like because we want, you know, Lancaster Farming needs future audience, right? So, you know,
Right.
but it's about getting kids to engage with their curiosity and the world. Because farming, yeah, like I said before, everyone should have a vested interest in agriculture. So anyway, so we get the idea from Drew. We sort of workshop it as a team, and we've been assembling a podcast team here over the past couple of years. I started just a podcast. It's sort of like Fresh Air with Terry Gross, but it was about industrial hemp. It's still in production. I still do that weekly, but from there we sort of built a few other shows, and this was the first time we got into something scripted. Because before it was, you know, just talking, sort of like what we're doing here.
Right.
But this show is different because now we have Justin Berger. He's our audio engineer, and he is a gifted man, and he makes our show just shine. You know, we have a team of writers, Candace and our other colleague Stephanie Spiker. They do the majority of the writing, and we record it, and then we hand it to Justin, and it makes it so much fun. There's music, there's sounds.
One of the things I've listened to some of your episodes, and I saw that you were driving someplace, and I was thinking about your sound engineer. You can hear the car driving away, and that he's really good with his sounds. It's really interesting.
Yeah,
he's excellent.
He's got a good ear.
So a couple of things I want to talk about before we get into the details of the podcast. One of the things is when I was looking at it, I saw somebody had written a rating for you guys that was on Apple or something. It was a good review, but the review was, I love this. I'm so happy you guys are doing it. I hope you keep doing it because a lot of the kid ones go away. And you know, I think that's probably just where somebody doesn't really know podcasts. A lot of podcast people have a great idea and they're not consistent with it and it goes away. So that's an important thing too. And I think it's a great way, if I'm a parent, and I'm driving these days, to have a show that I can put on to shut up the kids. If they're not asking me a question every 2 seconds, to have them listen. I think that's another thing, too. And I'm saying that for the people that are listening, too. If you've got kids, I think you go to it and listen to it. Even before we get into it, they're short episodes, but it's a great 5 or 10 minute break from your kids for a while.
Yeah, and they're meant to be that way. I mean, one, they're shorter episodes because
attention span. Sure.
Exactly.
Right.
But they're also meant that, like, if you're in the car, you can put on, 2 or 3 and you're at grandma's house, you know?
Right.
The other thing, like we learned sort of coming up through here, we have a mentor named Jerry, and he sort of, what's the phrase was, parents press play. And so that's something that we keep in mind.
Oh, that's cool.
Because like the kids are the audience, but it's the parents that we're also, kind of working for. And my kids now are sort of late teenagers, but yeah, there was times where we suffered through so many bad kids podcasts.
I know it. I was a bus driver, as I mentioned. I can't find anything to do that. Parents press play. So it's funny this is my humor. So I'm thinking about 4-H, right? So if you talk about your show, it's Super Smart Farm Show. And I'm just thinking if farm was an S, you could have 4S, 4H, and now you could have 3 Ps. This is how I think. Okay, so you guys have the idea. Walk me through that, and then let's get into some detail about the show, some of your favorite episodes. I'm sure some you like. Me, I can tell you all of them are really good, just for all any guest that's ever been on. They're all really good, but some of them resonated more with me than others. Let's just put it that way.
Right. So what we've done is at some point, we created this huge list of brainstormed ideas for questions that kids might have about farming. So it might be like, why do sheep need haircuts? How does a tractor run? And
myths like, do cows really have 4 stomachs?
Right. And so we have this huge list of topics to pull from. And so every episode of Super Smart tackles one of these questions. And throughout the episode, we write it so that our host, which is a farmer named Elmer, played by Eric here.
Hey there, farm friends.
Yes. He goes out and...
I like your voice. I like your voice better on the show than on this show. I think
I respect that. I respect that.
Pee Wee Herman.
Elmer goes out and he talks to different experts who might be able to help him answer these questions. So, like, do cows have four stomachs? He talks to a cow. If we talk about what would happen if the weeds were to take over, he goes out and he actually talks to a farmer, but then a weed shows up and he gets to hear it from the weed's perspective. And so, we write these scripts that are meant to be engaging. There are little pop quizzes sprinkled throughout. There are little jokes.
It's interactive, engaging for the
keep
kids.
The kids listening and engaged.
And your kids actually listen, right? And they shout out answers, don't they?
They do. Yeah, I have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old, so they love it. We try to target like an elementary school aged audience, so they're kind of right there, and they're a good bellwether for what we're doing. But yeah, they enjoy it. They shout out the answers. Sometimes my 9-year-old likes to intentionally shout out what he knows is the wrong answer because he's a smart aleck.
Well, because he's a kid.
Yeah. But he's still engaging. Yeah. Even if he's engaging in that kind of way, he's still listening.
It's good. I saw one of the recent episodes is Why Barns Are Red, even though that's not animal related. I'm sure there's probably a lot of adults that would want to know why they're red too, at the end of the day. And I think more importantly is getting our kids educated in a fun way versus them, playing Game Boy or whatever they're doing at the time too, to get them more engaged and also learn. I guarantee you there are people that are listening now that have kids that their kids don't know when you go into the grocery store where it comes from.
Right.
Well, you always hear, people who, if you ask them, where does milk come from? They'll say the grocery store.
Right.
And that's something that we need to get away from. And it starts with this kind of educational content for kids where now they know, like, well, this is where milk comes from. This is where ice cream comes from.
Right. I mean, there was a time in America where, I don't know what the number is, but 60% maybe of people were in agriculture. Like that was the main endeavor was like making food for you and your family and your neighborhood. And now it's something like less than 2% of the American population has a connection to agriculture. And that's a big disconnect, and that's sad. I think that's going to change. I think we are going to be even more reliant on agriculture in the future. So
tell me why. Why do you think that?
Well, agriculture, we need something to pull carbon from the sky. We need something to lock carbon into the soil, into products. I think we can make a lot more from plants, from farmed material than we are currently doing. So it's like, can we move from petrochemical manufacturing to something more, dare I say, sustainable? Because, that's not just a buzzword. That's how we get out of this century.
I don't know what the generation is called now because I can't keep up with the millennial X, whatever the one is now. But I think they call them Luddites or whatever now, where they're getting away from.
They're buying dumb phones. Yeah.
Well, they're getting dumb phones and they're doing things to get back away from technology taking over their life because it owns us. I remember early on when I first started working, I had to carry a pager and I hated it because it was like a leash. But now everybody has a leash with a phone. And my kids, if they send me a text message, if I don't respond within a few minutes, Dad, are you mad at me? And I go, no, I just don't respond all the time. And they laugh now because when I respond, it's yes or no. I don't get into any detail. If I'm on a group text of things, I rarely respond.
I can't stand the group text.
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
And I think it's important. One of the reasons when we talked about doing this episode, I think it's important for people to know what the other options are out there. And also, I think it's important for people to understand nature. And a lot of kids don't get that much anymore. So a lot of that. So back to my question. Tell me some of your favorite episodes. I know you said you got 52. I'm sure all 52 are magnificent, by the way, but some that just resonated maybe with you personally. And I know you wrote a lot of scripts, so that's going to be a little bit hard too.
Yeah.
I mean, one recently that I really enjoyed was what would happen if farmers let the weeds win? So I kind of mentioned this earlier, and it's about what would happen if we just let weeds take over. And
right.
Part of it is because we had someone who works here, Travis, our newsletter editor, came in and did a fantastic job voicing this really obnoxious weed. And we're going to have him back. but that was a fun one. I also
Why do farms smell funny in the spring? Kids love things that might have some connection to poop, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Went there.
I also liked one, and this was actually a listener submitted question, and it was, why do chickens say bok? So that's part of this podcast is we invite listeners to submit their own questions for us to answer.
Right.
And we've gotten a good number. And so this was from a listener, and he wanted to know, why do chickens make the sounds they make? And so for that one, Elmer went out and he talked to a rooster named Roy.
Roy.
Talked about the different sounds that chickens and roosters make, because they don't just say bok, they say a few things. But then
in other languages too, right?
He also started to get into the fact that in other languages, it's not, cock-a-doodle-doo or buck-buck. Like, they say other things, which they escape me now, but that was a hoot to record, because we had
some pronunciation issues.
Just yelling into the mic these sounds that are not sounds that we normally hear when we're speaking in English, but they're very normal for someone who is speaking Spanish or I forget some of the other languages that we pulled in. Oh, Polish, I think, was one. That was a lot of fun, that one.
Yeah, but, we cover lots of topics. There's a lot about dairy and cheese and why do horses wear horseshoes? Why do we eat turkey at Thanksgiving? How big can a pumpkin grow? All sorts of stuff. How do scarecrows work, And it's great because as Elmer, I get to talk to so many different creatures and animals and things. So it's a fun journey for.
Well, also, Elmer, one of those great things about doing that is that, and one of the reasons I love doing the podcast, you learn all these new things that you kind of maybe knew a little bit about, but you realize, and it's so obvious, but then you hear and you go, oh, well, that makes sense. Elmer's a smart guy. I don't know about you, Eric, but Elmer's a great guy.
Yeah, he's aspirational for sure.
So have you done one, because along with the language thing, like I said, I was recently in Ukraine. We've got an episode coming out, but these dogs are used to hearing Russian or Ukrainian, and I'm speaking to them. They know the energy in that, but they don't know the language. So it's kind of a weird thing if you think about animals not knowing. They're just, if they hear a human talk, I'm sure it has to do with energy and other things and inflection, but still, you're speaking a foreign language to them as well, which is kind of crazy.
I was in Prague 2 summers ago for my other podcast. And when I was walking around at night, there's so many people with dogs. And my question to them was, hey, does your dog speak English? And it was like an icebreaker question. And they would laugh, say, no, only Czech. And it was fun. I love dogs.
But they do know no, so you got that one down. That's a language that's universal. That word's universal, but some of the other words, and you think about that, how does that work?
I think you're right. It's energy. I think it's like how you say it and your body language. And
it's also some training, because if you think about animals that are on the farm that are trained to do specific jobs. So we had an episode about how do herding dogs work. And a lot of the times they're responding to commands from farmers. And it's not, all right, go left, go right. It's like, was it? Come around, or there's all different kinds of phrases that are used. Or we were actually talking about oxen
yesterday. Yeah, like haul and gee, and there's all sorts of words that.
Well, that's funny. So now that you say that, I was just going to say I did an episode with a woman who is a musher, and said, they don't say mush, they say hike. And they say haw and G for right and left, which is the same thing with oxen. That's how they do with sled dogs.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And nobody says, everybody thinks it's mush. It's not even used ever. They say hike. There's all kinds of weird things about where the mush comes from.
It's probably what you eat for breakfast, right?
Well, no, where it came from. The French to walk was marcher, and Americans being us, we translated into our word, and they're like looking mush. What is mush? Anyways, so it became hike, which is kind of cool.
I always thought it was mush because that's what Eucorn Cornelius says to all of his dogs in the Rudolph the Reindeer.
Yeah.
The guy who called the dog.
Yeah.
It all comes back to Rudolph.
Mush, mush.
One of my favorites. Okay, so one more episode. Let's talk about one more episode, and then let's tell everybody how to find you guys and all that kind of stuff too, and anything that we've left out. Let's cover it, because I'm kind of thinking we've covered most everything. I think.
Yeah, I mean, another episode that you like, Candace. What's one of your favorites?
You know what? I enjoy the why do apples come in so many colors?
That was a good one.
Yeah, that's also science that can be applied to other crops as well. But we kind of got into the science of crop genetics and about, coloring. Like, what does beta carotene do to plants? It'll turn them orange or yellow.
What I love about making the show is the interaction with the rest of our colleagues. We haven't gotten everybody on the show yet, but we write a script and we're like, oh, we need a sunflower. Oh, we need a goat. And we have a wonderful team here, and it's great. It's a really neat way to spend time with your colleagues, is like reading just a bizarre script, across a table with them. It's a lot of fun, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that we get to do this and like call it work.
Right. So. And it unlocks like a whole other side of colleagues too, because sometimes they come in and they'll just do their normal voice for a character, but some of them come in and do an entire character that they've built, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So basically the inner kid comes out on everybody.
That's a good way to put it.
Well, really, it's true. Silliness is a great way to do things. It's certainly a breaker. And, for you guys,
play is important. For sure.
Well, I think so too. And getting to write the script, because, for me, for my episodes, I always, for an intro for everyone, it's only a couple minutes long, but I probably enjoy that as much as doing the podcast, because I get to kind of play with my silly humor that I have that nobody likes but me. But I have fun with it. When I hear the intro, I go, God, that's the best intro ever.
I can so relate to what you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, I bet you can, Elmer.
Not just as Elmer, but as Eric on the on the hemp show. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I speaking of the hemp real quick while we finish this thing, I think I saw it was Chris Pine I think it was Chris Pine, and I may be wrong, it's somebody in that level of actor, was building his own house, and they were making hemp like blocks and that, and they grew it and did it, and he was involved from the beginning to the end for making his house.
That was Zac Efron, I think.
Oh, okay, Zach, thank you. I know they're all same level, same idea.
Well, that's making it out of this. This is hempcrete.
Oh wow,
this here.
Oh cool.
Well,
yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating what you can do with agriculture.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So for everybody that's out there, how do they find you? Talk. We've said the name, but talk how they find everything before we get into that joke that you guys can't wait to hear.
Well, the name of our show is Super Smart Farm Show, and you can find it anywhere you would access podcasts. So you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the major platforms.
On YouTube?
Yes. You can also find it on lancasterfarming.com.
So, by the way, for anybody listening, it's easy to find, and you can do that. But I know you mentioned if people want to write in for ideas for a show, like anybody that's listening now, say, I'd love to hear an episode about whatever X. How do they do that?
So they can write to us at supersmart@lancasterfarming.com.
Okay, and then social media.
We are at Lancaster Farming on most platforms.
Okay.
And if you going back to the email, if you forget about it as you're listening to this podcast, and
it's in the description, guys. Anyway,
I was going to say we say it at the end of all of our podcasts too, so it's a reminder.
Yeah, and I'll have all the stuff in the description. We're recording now, but we'll have all that in there too. But for people that don't want to go to the description,
for people who are driving, how do they get there? Yeah,
yeah. Well, that's pretty much when I listen to podcasts is when I'm driving.
Yeah. But yeah, you can find us, search Super Smart Farm Show, go to lancasterfarming.com. There's a lot there. You'll find more than just the podcast at lancasterfarming.com. It's a whole world that you will enjoy.
Yeah, and I would highly recommend it. And if you've got kids in particular, the podcast is great. It's really short. My grandkids are going to come up and stay with me here in a couple of weeks, and I think they're listening, but I guarantee during the time, if we're in the car, I'll be playing something like you guys and all that for sure to get in. I think it's worth for anybody to at least search it out.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. It's really great being here today. Thank you for inviting us.
You're not done yet. You get the joke. Trying to get away from the joke. So everybody, it's that joke time. As everybody listens all the time, I know you're cringing. I forgot to tell them to have a joke, so you're stuck with me today.
Oh, I have a joke, but
oh, good. Were you going to get one? Well, let me finish it real quick. For anybody that's listening, if you've got grandkids, nieces, nephews, you want to be on the show, if you email me at mkyle@forrealpodcast.com, I'll gladly have you on. I know guests would much prefer you tell the joke, not me or them. So if you got a joke, go ahead, but I've got one for you afterwards.
All right. Well, this is kind of A nerdy joke? Nerdy joke.
Well, every joke I had is nerdy.
Well, did you hear the one about the dyslexic, agnostic, insomniac?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, well, he stayed up all night wondering if there was a dog.
Oh, that's hilarious.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It's a hard one, though. And to remember all those words is hard, too. So here's mine. This is the level. You've got the mental side. I've just got no mental side. Why do cows wear bells? Their horns don't work. There you go. That's what I meant. See what I mean? Anyways, guys, I know that are listening out there. Please, if you got a joke, do it. But for you guys, both of you, thanks so much for being on the show. This is a fun one. I love anything that's related to kids that can help kids have entertainment and have a good thing. So thanks so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Yeah, thanks for
having us.
Yeah, thanks for doing what you do, Mark. It's great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And then for everybody else out there that's listening, as I always say, without you guys, we're not growing. Please pass it on. Obviously, if you've got families, if you've got kids, this is a great one to pass on. But most importantly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for listening. For real.
That concludes this episode of For Real with your host, Mark Kyle. For previous and future episodes of For Real, listen via all major podcast streaming sites.